was just having a little gander through my email there, and I'm a member of the Green Party in Ireland. I think it's good if we have sort of public discussion on what our parties are saying. And so I thought what we would do is have a little bit of fun. We just go through this email that was sent to me and read it out and give my genuine, first impressions here. So you can see that we've launched our manifesto earlier today at a press briefing in Dublin, attended by many of our 43 general election candidates. It's an ambitious document which outlines a plan for the next 5 years. We've called the manifesto Towards 2030, a decade of change, volume 2. I like the Towards 2020, a decade of change. Volume 2, this feels like Electric Boogaloo, do you know what I mean? Because we want to remind voters that we were very frank about the need for 10 years to introduce the changes that we need to make. I think the Green Party has actually made a lot of really good achievements, and they need to hammer on more about their achievements. Now, I do agree, I get it. This is an internal communication. This is for members of the Green Party. So, there are many highlights, but our biggest promise is to build a new light railway systems in several cities. I love this. This is incredible. Light railway is just a fantastic system in terms of the money invested. Based on the research that I've done, investment into light rail is some of the best return on like building 100 kilometers of road pales in comparison to building 10 kilometers of light rail, both in terms of initial investment cost and return on investment. Just insane. And so they want to do a 10 billion investment to supercharge the delivery of major public transport projects. I think this sort of, we need to surge money in, we need to pump money in. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but I often think that a lot of public sector problems, there's this obsession with just pump money. When I don't know if that's the right way to do things. What I would much rather do is let's have 10 billion invested over a period of a long period of time, and we get really good, because the biggest problem we have is everything gets bogged down with these environmental consultations and these public consultations and all these sorts of things, the over-regulation and all. And I just actually delivered, I'm pretty sure they built railway lines from London to Manchester in a couple of years in the 1820s. Now, fair enough, right? Regulations weren't quite what they were, now, but it feels like we're a civilization without ambition. Do you know what I mean? We can't even get light rail put into cities. The plan will use 7 billion of the Apple tax money, I don't know how I feel about the Apple tax money, and 3 billion from other sources to ensure that major transport projects such as Metrolink, Dart Plus, the Lewis extension, and rail projects in Cork, Limerick, Galway and Waterford start construction. Love this. I especially love light rail in non-Dublin cities is huge. And here's why. Because it's going to increase the desirability of those cities, thus decentralising the economy away from Dublin, which will take pressure off of the housing market in Dublin. I think Ireland is far too Dublin-centric. We need to get people out into the countryside. People need to be living out on the land. People need to be living out of Dublin. There's too many people in Dublin. We're way too concentrated. There's too many people living in Dublin, and we're not building tall enough to make it work. So we need to spread people out. That's why we need better rail connections, public transport, all that stuff. Get it going. And the measures will specifically include Bus Connects, Metro, Dart Plus, Lewis extensions, Bus Connects and light rail from Mahon to Ballincollig in Cork, reopening the railway line from Wexford to Waterford, and upgrading existing lines to Limerick and Kilkenny. Love that. Here's the thing, railway is so good. If you can get your railway up and running, the dividends return on that, the amount of money you put into it compared to the amount of money you get out, the economic activity of railway is insane. Especially if you start analysing it not on a GDP per capita basis or a capital expenditure basis, but if you start looking at it from an ecological and economic impact, and also a resource allocation, like how many natural resources are used up, railway just outperforms everything. New rail lines include the opening of a rail line to Shannon and creating a metropolitan electric rail service that extends to Ennis, Nina, Foynes, Limerick Junction and all stations in between. Love it. More rail. All the rail. In Galway, we'll open a bus corridor from Nakara to Eastern Industrial Estates, build light rail for the city and build a park and ride, and reopen the Western Rail Corridor. We have railway lines sitting dormant in this country that were built before we were independent. I think. That might be one of those talking points that rolls off the top of your head. I actually haven't done the research to make sure that that's 100% true, but that's, let's get the trains going again. You know what I mean? Let's get some trains going. The party also wants to improve and further expand public transport after cutting costs over the last 4.5 years, including a 20% cut in adult fares, 60% for young people, and free fares for under nines. I do love the cutting costs in terms of public transport. I would like to see small taxes on automotive vehicles, let's say 1 cent per litre that goes towards public transport on gas. I think these very, very slight things, that means it's one of these economy of scale things that just pushes the needle of encouraging people to go towards public transport by making it look more attractive. So I think improving the efficiency, making public transport better. Also, I think buses kind of need, the kind of private security that they have in the Lewis, even just having people getting on and off occasionally, just so that the security theatre of having a security guard jump on and off, in particular on lines where there is a lot of social, I forget what the word is, antisocial behaviour, that'd be something I'd really appreciate. Another idea in the new manifesto is a new climate ticket that will offer further savings to regular commuters, as well as taking a number of measures to improve reliability of bus services. I'm curious about this climate ticket. The party will also focus for further service to regular commuters. Okay, so people who take the buses and trains often will get a special ticket. Outside public transport, the party outlines its plans to roll out a state-led system of childcare that will guarantee an early years place for every child and put free solar panels on 200,000 low-income homes. I like the idea of a state-led system of childcare. Really key that we get the regulations on this, like, really solid. Like, you need to be engaging with people in the childcare industry. There was a creche or preschool or I think it was like a play school, basically, where you send your children when they're kind of like, they're not quite ready for school, but you want to get them a little bit of socialization and maybe like learn a few basic concepts, play some games, keep them busy. It's basically play school, right? So childcare. It's good for kids to get out and about and have a bit of fun and be amongst their peers and not spend all day with mommy and daddy. And this creche had to shut down, and I fucking shit you not, right? It's because they didn't have room to have a second fridge to store, it was some Tulsa or Tuzla or whatever that child organization in Ireland is. It's because they couldn't get a second fridge or something to store emergency milk for children that weren't even attending the creche. And then also there was the landlord wasn't willing to make a modification to one of the doors for fire safety. And it was just like, this woman had been running this childcare facility for like 40 years and had to shut it down because they pulled the rug out from under her with regulation. I think you have to really engage with the childcare providers to really make sure that the legislation and regulation is actually doing the job and is fit for purpose. I've heard some really bad horror stories in childcare, and I am pro free childcare, or at the very least inexpensive childcare or subsidized childcare, right? And here's why. If you make the choice to have a child, okay, you've essentially, in some respect or another, okay, forgiving and assuming that children aren't going to move away from Ireland, which they do tend to do, right? You've essentially committed to the future of the existence of Irish society. And I think since we have fallen out of the village mentality of a bunch of people chipping in to help out with childcare, I think the government stepping in there and sort of helping out people that have made a choice to make sure society exists, sans immigration or whatever. It just seems fair and reasonable, especially if you consider it from a terms of an equality point of view. Like, let's say we have one couple, right? No kids. And they both can work, no problem. They're both earning an income. They're both paying their bills. And then let's say we have another couple, right? And let's say the fella, he doesn't make quite as much money as the lady, right? Maybe he never went to college. Maybe he has this like an average income job. And they have to make the decision that actually they would be financially better off if he stayed at home and cared for the children rather than going to work. That to me feels like a system that is less equal than a system where people who want to work have the choice to, right? That feels like freedom. And so if we all chip in a little bit of money, right? It's like insurance. We all chip in a little bit of money. We all get more freedom as a whole. And that's something I can get behind. So I'm cautiously optimistic about state-led systems of childcare. I'm quite interested on the idea of putting free solar panels on 200,000 low-income homes, because solar panels are the kind of thing that pay themselves off over a period of time. I don't know if people, now when I say low income homes, I want to specifically say here, people who get free housing, like there is, I know it's a fucking meme, right? That people say this all the time, but like, if it's not yours, if you didn't pay for it, you don't care about it, right? It's a totally different ballgame to sell a house that you inherited versus to sell a house that you poured your blood, sweat and tears into for 20 years to buy and save up for. So I wonder, similarly, are people going to actually really give a fuck about their solar panels and manage them properly and use them properly if they're just slapped onto a house that they didn't really care about? I don't know. Look, I like the initiative. Maybe I would like to see this pushed like as a grant for people, this money pushed for people who want to get solar panels and are interested in it, because those people are going to do the research and they are going to, that's just my thought. That's my feeling. Now, I could be wrong, right? I could be totally wrong. That's just my vibe, right? That's my vibe on that. Okay, talking of homes, we also promised to target an average of 50 to 53,000 new homes per year. If you're not familiar with the Irish housing market, we are in a mega deficit. The other fucking mental thing is you can walk down certain streets in Dublin City and there are like 2-story townhouses on some of these streets, right? And I'm talking like a 10-minute walk from the Dáil. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's mental. There should be no building under like 3 stories, 4, maybe 5 stories in a capital city. The idea that there's a semi-detached house in a city centre is just fucking mind-blowing. And it has to change. And we need, not only do we need more homes, right, but the city can't spread infinitely. We need real leadership and a real vision for what housing of the future in Ireland needs to look like. And it has to be a hybrid system of single family homes, apartment buildings, townhouses, hybrid office apartment kind of accommodation. That has to change. 1,500 homes will be affordable. My personal opinion is, while I appreciate the thought an idea behind cost rental and affordable purchase homes, this creates a strain on the people who don't get it. My problem with things like affordable homes that are not available to all is that you essentially create winners and losers in the economy, and everyone else subsidizes it with their tax euros, right? Like, I'm paying, 33% on average of my yearly income, right? That's like you take the average of the amount of tax that I pay, it's like 35%, right? Based on, that's the average tax I pay. And I don't own a home. Someone else is getting a home for free, and that doesn't feel good to me. Whereas I think, like, if you think of like like if you took those same 15,000 homes and you allocated them to the market at their market rate, and the government was the beneficiary of that market rate, or some sort of building society or housing union or something like that. Same with, and it's sort of the same thing with social homes. Personally, I feel like the issue isn't social housing, and this could be just me. It's just that there isn't enough housing. There just needs to be more. I'm willing to bite the bullet and accept solutions to the housing market that make use of affordable homes and make use of social homes. My preference would be for all 50,000 of these homes to go onto the market for purchase by private owners. My personal feeling is that is a better way to do things, but I will absolutely 100% support this policy if they can be anywhere reasonably doable. Other measures include a dedicated asylum and integration agency. Holy shit, do we need refugee and asylum reform in Ireland? It's insane how long people sit on the asylum lists and how they're processed, how they're treated. We absolutely need asylum reform in Ireland. The agency will also be responsible for the provision of accommodation and material reception conditions, and for ensuring that those requesting international protection receive a high standard of psychosocial and integration support, with a particular emphasis on supports for the most vulnerable. I'm not one of these, like, Ireland is full, types, but you're handing them ammunition here. And look, here's the thing. I agree. Asylum in Ireland is broken. It needs reform, and we have a international legal obligation and moral obligation to help the people that are coming here seeking asylum. But the problem is, you have to acknowledge that if you take this position, right, that you're always going to optically look worse than someone who says, well, why don't we take care of Irish people first? Right? That's just something you're always going to look worse than that person, okay? And so you need to craft your messaging to tackle that. And I think the way that you do that is by talking about how asylum is broken, right? You say asylum is broken in Ireland, and we want to fix the system. We want to make sure Ireland is meeting its obligations, right? That Ireland is required to do these things, that this is being forced upon us. We have to do this, and that we want to meet a minimum standard for humaneness, and also in terms of making sure the system is efficient and saving money so that money can be spent on, Irish people. It's one of those things. This is 100% right. I support this policy. I just think you have to be really good at optics to sell this to anyone other than people who have even the remotest understanding of international refugee and asylum agreements and all these treaties that member states of various international organisations are, signed up to. Now, on childcare, the party pledges to move forward towards a new public model of early years education. Central to this is a guarantee of access to early years education for every child, regardless of where they live. This is a very bold promise. The entire manifesto can be found on our website. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So this is Pauline O'Reilly, Director of Elections. Thank you very much, Pauline. So housing, target an average of 50 to 53,000 homes per year. So 4,000 renovated, 12,000 social, 15. This is a very ambitious target. If they could hit this, I would love it. Here's the thing. I'm never going to oppose this plan because it has too many affordable and social houses, because I will always support any plan that gets more houses, right? I just don't like the idea that we create winners and losers in society funded by the government. I think the government should exist to fix anyone who is made to be a loser. And by that, and when I say loser, what I mean is somebody who is economically worse off because of market conditions, right? We should be able to bring them up to a reasonable level because the market didn't value them or whatever. Maybe you're a basket weaver. It's like, okay, well, nobody wants to buy your baskets. Okay, well, you should probably be allowed to get food. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't think we should be subsidizing basket weavers. Does that make sense? Like the business. We should be subsidizing the human, the people. And I just don't know if this plan hits that. My current vibe is that, I don't know. but I could very easily be convinced that it does, with sufficient data. A detailed plan for tackling vacancy, resting on 3 pillars, reducing administrative and regulatory barriers to renovation work, tackling vacancy, okay? So they want to tackle the barriers to renovation work. This is a nightmare. Providing financial support from the state, interesting, and expanding taxation on vacant properties. Taxation on vacant properties is a good one. But we in general, we need to bring down the value of homes. The big problem is that housing in Ireland has for a long time been seen as a investment. And we need to get that idea out of the heads of Irish people. So we need to start raising property taxes to bring the cost of owning homes up. We need to start making it much more attractive to put your money into sort of more abstract pension funds, all that sort of stuff. That would be part of a new Minister of State, that would be part of my solution. A new Minister of State for regional cities to ensure public capital investment goes to Waterford, Limerick, Cork and Galway. Love it. I think far too much money gets pumped into Dublin. Now, I don't know what the actual ratios are. This is more of a vibe thing, but I would love to see Waterford, Limerick, Cork and Galway to become really, really powerful and culturally significant cities in Ireland, in of themselves. And they are culturally significant, right? But I think Dublin is a black hole and we just need to get less people, there. I mean, let's make these regional cities fucking beautiful. Let's make them amazing. As an anti-homelessness measure, make the Help to Buy scheme available to hard-pressed renters seeking to purchase their home from the landlord, while also continuing the tenant in situ and cost rental tenant in situ schemes. I am ideologically against any measure that takes the form of rent control. And this sounds like rent control. I would have to look into what this actually is though. So I'm not going to comment on it too much. Continue to create warmer, healthier homes through an equity release scheme for retrofitting so that older people can live in warmer homes without taking on debt and increasing 80% attic and cavity wall insulation grant to 100%. Genuinely, this should be something that I just can't believe that we're making older people live in cold homes. Like, this should be just something like, what's your home? F-rated? We're going to fix that right up for you. And here's the thing. It should be an estate loan. It's like, if you're over the age of 50, you should be able, in my opinion, right? It should probably start around the age of 50. Is that if you're over the age of 50 and, or let's say you're even retirement age minus 10 years, right? You say we're 58. You're living in a home and you're never going to move. Like, fucking hell, man. You should be able to be like, I'm going to take out a loan that will be cleared against the house when I die so that the house is better and more economically efficient into the future. Like, that is just such a no-brainer. I can't believe we're not already doing that. So we need to do this. And also, like, equity release scheme? No, just like put a bit of debt, which is probably what an equity release scheme is. Put a bit of debt that accumulates very low amount of interest on the person's estate. You give up 5% of your house's value for a retrofit, and when you die, that 5% has to be cleared. Now, let's see. Welfare. Continue to deliver progressive budgets by increasing social welfare in line with wage and price inflation. Introducing a new anti-child poverty payment, increasing home carers tax credit to 4,000. The home carers tax credit to 4,000 is fantastic. There's a lot of people in Ireland, and it's becoming increasingly more common, who are essentially like the primary caregiver of a person who needs a certain amount of care. Now, there are also situations where people are kind of having a go and they're listed as a carer for someone who doesn't really need help. I have heard of things like that, but generally speaking, I would describe this as a net positive. Making it available to unmarried cohabiting parents. That's fantastic. And introducing a new €50 weekly cost of disability payment. Honestly, these people are already down hard, and if they're getting a few bob here or there so that they can pay their bills, I really don't have an issue with this. I'm super pro anti-child poverty payments. The more money we put into the hands of poor parents, the better outcomes are across the board. Like, I would be pro free lunches. I think schools should feed kids, because that way, we can guarantee they're getting at least 1 to 2 good meals a day. Yeah, I think injecting money into children's lives is one of the areas where I'm extremely financially liberal. It's like the return on investment from that graph is like insane. It's like if you give a child an extra 100 calories a day or whatever, you're going to see, I don't like to use IQ scores, but I'll use it in this example. Like, you'll see like multiple points of IQ and physical performance, like over the course of a population, just go up, right? Partially why, we're taller, stronger, healthier, is because we get like that early food is so big. Extend maternity, paternity and parents leave to provide 52 weeks of leave in the first year of the child's life, and increase maternity, paternity and parents leave benefit by €40 per week. I like this. 52 weeks of leave, very helpful, really good. I am pro-natal. I'm like, listen, I'm not like we should all have kids, but I'm like, we should make having kids easier. Like, as in, like, the burden of having children should be lighter, because these are, I genuinely believe that having a child is one of the best ways that you can have to influence the future of humanity, right? If you have a kid and you raise them with good values and you raise them well, and that child goes on to have their own kids, let's say they work really hard in green energy, or they just live a really highly moral and meaningful life, you know, you've done a huge service to every person that interacts with that child. So I really do feel that being a parent is a very important part of building the future of the world, and it's something small we can all do together, or separately, I guess. Have a new centralized means testing agency designed to simplify the process for people seeking access to public services, while at the same time allowing for better targeting of grants of social assistance payments and providing the data needed to inform better social policy making in the future. Access to public services, well, I would need to know what the details of this is. I think the current system for welfare in Ireland is a little bit mental. I forget what the name of that. There's this feckin' organisation. They basically like harass you into trying to find a job, and they're completely useless. And then if you get a job on your own, they will like call up your job to try and get like the credit for getting you a job, because they get paid extra if they actually get you. Like, the welfare system in Ireland is fucking mental, and I think it needs to be, God, why can't I remember what they're called? Mainly because I've been lucky enough to never have to interact with them, but anyone I know who's had to interact with that organization, I can't just, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. They drag you in for interviews and make you apply for jobs, and it's just like, why don't you apply for like this job that you're completely overqualified for, and we'll get paid like a quarter of what you're worth. Nature. Develop a nature restoration plan. Love nature, love ecology, and advocate for an EU nature restoration fund. Big fan. Love that. Use the climate nature fund to support large-scale nature restoration projects on public and private land, and continue to create new national parks and nature reserves. Love it. Super on board. Publish and enact a marine protected areas bill. Would love to see data on all of this. Like, okay, what sort of effect is this going to have on the economy? That is always something we should be considering. I know people always say like, oh, the economy, but the economy is like the thing that affects people's lives in a very big way. And so we need to be making sure that we're not destroying human lives to save nature now, when we can destroy a little bit of nature now and save all of nature later if we keep the economy pumping. It's kind of a difficult balance, right? We need to think about these things. Climate action. Use the funding we've secured from the Climate and Nature Fund in the following way. 1.2 billion on the retrofit of public buildings. Brilliant. If we can make public buildings more efficient, if we can move them over to heat pumps and better insulation, all that stuff. Energy efficient measures for businesses. Brilliant. Support the development of district heating. Brilliant. New biomethane industry. This I'm curious about. I keep getting emails from a guy who wants me to invest in this. I'm kind of curious about it, but I don't have the money for it, I'm afraid. I'm moderately wealthy, but I'm not this kind of wealthy. 200 million for a program of research and innovation for clean technologies. 100 million for new infrastructure required for offshore wind and micro generation. And invest half of the Apple money in public transport projects, a new climate ticket, supports for electric vehicle, and investment in cycling and walking infrastructure. I'm on board with all of that. My personal opinion is that economy should have been higher, maybe above nature and climate action. You can kind of tell by the priorities. Okay, really appreciate that housing is up here. I don't necessarily engage with welfare, but I understand that it's important for other people. But this is an area where I think this for me is an area where I think this has the biggest effect on the most people in Ireland. So having a strong economic policy is very, very important. Help small businesses by introducing tax rebates and expanding and increasing the energy efficiency grant. Will extend illness benefit to the self-employed. This is fantastic. I would actually benefit from this. I'd have to look into what the entitlements are. But yeah, self-employed people get shafted in a variety of ways, but we do get a lot of benefits in other ways too. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I don't know if this is the best sort of political capital to spend energy and time on, but maybe for other self-employed people that work, who put their bodies on the line, this might mean a lot more, because if you hurt yourself and you're getting that illness benefit, might matter a lot more. Use a portion of the 3 billion climate and nature fund to help businesses cut down on fossil fuel use, encouraging to switch to heat pumps and zero emission gas. Love that. More heat pumps. We actually need to get a heat pump. We need to get a heat pump industry in Ireland, like big time. We need to start that transition now. A heat pump is insanely efficient. Like, even just ignoring emissions, right? Even if climate change wasn't real, right? Let's say we just pretend fossil fuel use doesn't matter, zero emissions. Heat pumps just use less energy, which saves you money, which means we need less power plants, which means it's just like heat pumps. Just fucking make heat pumps. Like, do it. Go. And that's something like I feel like the Green Party needs to be pumping. It's like, even if you don't care about the fucking climate, get those heat pumps going by. Let's fucking go. That's my opinion anyway. Develop new industries on the back of Ireland's enormous offshore wind energy potential. It's baffling to me. Ireland has an absurd amount of wind potential. Now, there are ecological concerns, but the electricity that we could generate and pump around the world, or well, mostly to Europe, could be insane. Establish an IDA for skills to help people find a job in Ireland with a particular focus on public service positions and support with relocation costs. Yeah, that sounds fine. I don't really have a... Convene a citizens' assembly to examine a detailed introduction of a 4-day working week. Ooh, I love this. Okay, from a quality of life standpoint, I love this. I don't know if we're ready for it. I don't know if we're ready for the 4-day work week. It's amazing, but I think I would like to see... Listen, I'm on board. Let's go for the 4-day work week. But our economy doesn't run particularly well on 5 days already. And now you want to cut a day? You want to take out 20% of the days? That's scary to me. I don't know how I vibe with that. Work to reform the spending rule by moving some investments to deliver direct and measurable savings to the exchequer in the long run outside of the spending rule. I'd have to look into what that is. Continue to save for the future of the economy by sticking to our commitment to transfer excess corporation tax receipts into the new Future Ireland Fund and Infrastructure, Climate and Nature Fund. I would have to look up what exactly these are, but I would imagine these are funds that are basically wealth funds and climate funds for the country, which, pretty reasonably happy with. Childcare, guaranteeing access to early years education, regardless of where they live, will give every child a legal right to early years education, directing the state to provide early years education care directly. So spooky. I mean, we'll give it a shot. Just be prepared for the scandals, right? You have robust shit. You got to have your shit in order if you're going to do this. Ensuring that early years professionals are valued, recognized for their extraordinary work through a process to increase pay and improve working conditions. This is going to have to be a serious level of engagement with these people. We'll introduce a new single national fee structure for public and private providers, guaranteeing fees at low, accessible levels set by the state. Nationally negotiated prices for childcare. I'm not against it. We'll build on the success of national we just need to be very careful about this, right? This is just an area where you got to be careful. This could have unintended side effects, depending on, the devil's always in the details. We will build on the success of the national childcare scheme, ensuring that the state increases its financial assistance to parents through both universal and income-assisted support. These combined means will ensure that early years education and care will be provided free of charge to families on lower incomes. I'm happy for this. Beyond this, families will be charged no more than €200 per child per month. €200 per child per month seems quite good. That's a good price for childcare. If is that 5 days a week? That's fucking mental. I don't have a kid, so I don't know what people are paying now, but it's got to be something mental. Phase reductions commensurate with increased year-on-year investment. Farming. Double the area of agricultural land being farmed organically to 10% by 2030, with a further target of 15% by 2035. I am not personally bought into the idea of organic farming. I think organic is one of those marketing buzzwords for green people, where it's organic, that means it's better. And I'm like, does it? What the fuck does organic mean? It's like saying your almonds are activated. It's a fucking marketing term. I don't know what it means. It's like, you don't use pesticides? But some of those pesticides save lives. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not educated on this area, but that's my feeling on it. End live animal exports to non-EU countries for fattening and slaughter, and phase out export of unweaned calves to EU member states. I don't know how the farmers are going to feel about this. What sort of economic repercussions this is going to have on the farming industries. I don't know. I assume this is being done for ethical reasons, but I would love to see the economic reason. End fox hunting and ban hare coursing during the next term of government. These are issues I just really don't personally care that all that much. Okay, cool. I'd much rather see you take on the greyhound industry personally. Safety. Strive to end violence against women and girls through a multi-pronged approach to focusing on education, domestic violence, orders, refugee spaces, and coercive control. Super on board with ending, reducing, mitigating any positive word, any word that makes the pain of violence against women easier. I'm pro all of that. Probably one of the most important parts of that is fucking Judge Nolan and his little fucking slap on the wrist for the old boys. This I'm really on board with. I think increasingly, the left, right, the sort of centre left and progressive left, we need to start talking to young men as well. Maybe not in safety, but somewhere we just start talking about men's mental health on national policy, because we're losing young men, and that's just completely unacceptable to lose 50% of the youth, potentially 30, 40, 50% of the youth vote, because we're just not talking about their personal issues. And every time you talk about this, some progressive will jump in and be like, oh, the world is built for men. And it's like, thanks, that was fucking really advanced the conversation there, didn't you? It's like, yeah, of course that's true, but not everyone's going to feel that way, so you need to talk to the people who don't feel that way. It's like, they vote, dumbass. You got to talk to voters. Modernise the justice system, increasing the number of Gardaí to 15,000 and hiring more judges and court clerks. Super on board with more Gardaí. I also think we need to... I can't remember, is it Gardaí? Would love to see more Gardaí. I would also like to see just more people employed in the security industry in Ireland in general. It just feels like they're not very visible. I mean, I'm not too worried about hiring more judges as I am about firing certain judges who have certain reputations. They published legislation to add new ground of socio-economic status to our equality legislation. Socioeconomic status to our equality legislation. Is this like with regards to discrimination? Like you can't call someone who's renting a rentoid, and you can't be a land chad making fun of the poor people anymore. Is this important enough? Does this need to be a protected class? I don't know if it does. I don't know what this means. If it means that we're making people who are poor a protected class, this feels like fucking wasted political capital, but I'm not even going to bother opposing it. Arts, culture and support. Expand the basic income for the arts pilot program. Will continue to increase arts council funding. I like the basic income for arts pilot program. I like Ireland is the island of saints and scholars, right? Or I like the idea that we will provide a little bit of money for people who are, musicians, painters, whatever, writers. It doesn't matter. I just love the idea that, I was very lucky in that when I kind of jumped off into the deep end and decided to do my own personal career, I had parents to support me. Now, I worked really, really hard, but I didn't have to worry about like rent. I didn't have to worry about food because they were paying for my house, like as in like I was living in their house and I was just like cooking dinner with their ingredients. Now, I cooked for everyone, to be fair, but it meant that I was able to dedicate all of my life to, my quote unquote art, right? Content creation. And I think I would like to see that for everyone, even people who weren't lucky enough to have parents that were understanding enough to even suffer through those first few years of zero income when you're trying to make a sort of creative job your main source of income, and B, who had the finance and the wherewithal to fucking not just kick you out. We'll continue to increase arts council funding. Love anything to do with culture, arts, love it. I'm on board. I think this is an area of Irish life and society and community that has extremely untapped potential, and I feel like it's one of those places where we can always make the world more beautiful with art. Love it. I would also like to see art is the domain of the soft lefty. And I think we need to start bringing more centrist, more masculinity, more people into art. The idea that art is some, fucking... some of the people who made the greatest chapels and temples in the world, they were fucking masons. You know what I mean? They were fellas with mortar and brick. We need art not just have this reputation of being slam poetry, but just like making the whole world beautiful, regardless of what it is, and that's just the vibes-based thing that I really, really, really think we need to do. For longer opening hours, reformed event licensing to revitalize the nighttime economy. This is something I really don't care for. Not because I don't care, it's just more like this doesn't personally affect me. It's just like if people want to stay out late and drink more, it's like, whatever, sounds good. I don't think spending all night drinking is like a net positive for society. I do like the idea of providing financial incentives for live venues to support the development of new creative acts. I like that. It's like if this is a up and coming artist, maybe you get a small tax break for having them running a gig or something. I don't know. I like that. Immigration. Establish a new asylum and integration agency for Ireland. Like that. Support communities to welcome people seeking refuge through rapid implementation of the comprehensive accommodation strategy, reducing the reliance on private providers, allowing for long-term planning. Immigration in this country, in particular asylum, this is completely bonkers broken. Also, again, it's just one of those things where it's just like a really easy optical loss compared to people like, oh, look after Irish people first, and you have to be ready to address that. Very, very important that we're ready to address that. Foreign affairs, immediately enact the Occupied Territories Bill and suspend dual-use export licenses to Israel. I need to do more research on what the Occupied Territories Bill is. We'll push for an immediate ceasefire and to continue to work towards a lasting, peaceful two-state solution. I think I'm on board with pushing for a ceasefire. I don't know what the lasting, peaceful solution to the conflict in Israel and Gaza and Palestine. I don't know what that looks like, but I don't know if this will help. I don't know if it'll hurt things, but I like this. Let's stop the people dying. Let's stop people dying. I'm super on board with that. Less people dead, more people peaceful, more people working, more people happy, more people, healing and moving on. That's what will build the peaceful world of tomorrow. We need people, when I say moving on, I don't mean just like, I guess, my family is dead now, I'll just go on with my life. What I mean is like leaving behind the hatred. We need to go forward into the future, and the ceasefire is going to be the thing that does that. I haven't done enough research into UNRWA. I heard some pretty spooky shit about them, but I haven't done the research to verify it. Like I think Israel has claimed that some of them were participants in the attacks in October 7th or were harboring hostages. I don't know. My current vibe is this feels like a virtue signal. I super don't care. Continue to provide non-lethal military aid for Ukraine. I think we are far beyond providing non-lethal military aid. We should be providing every single possible factor level agency of aid to Ukraine. We should have written that in my opinion, we should have wrote them a blank check and said if you don't exist anymore, your debt will be wiped clear. Or something, Yeah. I think it's crazy that a country is in an existential crisis and we're like, oh, we can only provide non-lethal military aid. It's like, bro, bloodthirsty fucking orcs are rampaging through their country and you're worried that you're going to give them the bullet to kill an orc. You know what I mean? Like, that's fucking wild, in my opinion. Found the GP visit card to include 8 to 10-year-olds. This doesn't affect me. I don't understand it. Sounds great. Cool. I don't know what the consequences are of this. If it increases the access to healthcare of young people, which will reduce young people mortality and increases their quality of life, then I support it. If it just costs us all a bunch of money, it doesn't really have a major impact. If it makes parents have more money so they can spend more money on their children and better outcomes for children, awesome. Otherwise, I'm like, building on the basic income for artist trial, bring a non-means tested basic income for all carers in the first 2 years of government. Oh shit, I'm on board. I have said this for years. It is wild to me that one of the most important jobs in human history, right, being a mother, has zero. Okay, let me be clear. There is zero economic, I don't even know what the word is, reward, consideration, incentive. There is zero, you can bust your ass all day at home, right? And this typically falls to women, by the way, and you get no money. That's crazy. These people are doing some of the most important work in all of society, right? I think there was a word for this, like unpaid invisible work. It's like, you think, oh, the man went out and made the money. It's like, no, motherfucker, who was cooking the food? Who was, like, I think it's wild that we didn't already provide money to the primary caregivers of children. Even just a small amount. Just a small amount. As a priority, establish a digital system for prescriptions, for a wider e-health strategy. I don't know what that's going to do. I don't know what it's going to affect. Introduce a free biannual gynecological appointments for women aged 16 to 40. Again, super on board with this. I think you also need to care a lot about men's health. It's one of these optics things. Listen, I get it, man. I fucking hate it too. But here's the thing. Every time you talk about women's health, you give a man an opportunity to be like, what about men's health? And if you just had a line here and it's like, introduce a free biannual proctologist appointment for men aged, 40 to 60 for prostate cancer, those, like, A, most men aren't going to take that. B, you're targeting a much smaller group of people. And C, the second anyone fucking mentions that, you have like the torpedo nuclear bomb to shut them the fuck up, which is why I support this. I personally support this. My criticism here is you should also have a policy for men that you can use as a torpedo to shut anyone the fuck up who complains about this. And also, men's healthcare matters too. Oversee the rollout of free hormone replacement therapy and ensuring that vaginal estrogen is made available without prescription, and continue the expansion of free contraception scheme. So I don't know. I assume this is for, like, hormone replacement therapy is like a very, very broad category of things. Most of the time it's going to refer to trans stuff. It can also refer to like older men taking testosterone because their testosterone levels are dipping. I don't know what vaginal estrogen is. I know what hormone replacement therapy is. I don't know if they're saying hormone replacement therapy should be available without prescription. I would have to look into that to see how I feel about that. I'm not in principle against the idea. I would just like to see what the outcomes like is having these things without. Also super on board with free contraception. I am like so pro-life, right? In the sense that I don't ever want a woman to have to get an abortion. I want her to get condoms, fucking the pill, the bar. I want all that shit to be free because I never want a woman to have to make the choice to get an abortion, okay? That's how pro-life I am. I'm so pro-life that if a friend of mine has a baby, I'll offer to fucking hoover their apartment for them, okay? Because I want them to have kids, but I want them to have kids when they're ready, when they're happy to. So I love free contraception because I don't want women to have to get abortions. So this is why I support this. This sort of thing, I would have to look at the outcomes. But we know what the outcomes of free contraception are. Like, it has been studied. Legislate for paid leave for pregnancy loss in all of its forms for up to 20 days. Enhance access to abortion care, paid leave for pregnancy loss in all of its forms for up to 20 days. It's pretty fucking hard, man. I remember I was working in a place and one of the guys who worked there, his wife had a miscarriage and they were pretty far along. It's unusual for there to be a miscarriage after I think it's about 12 weeks. And they were like pretty far along when she had this miscarriage. And man, at that point it's like losing a child. You know what I mean? That's fucked. Yeah, that's my feeling on that. It's fucked. He was a wreck for like a week in work. He took a couple of days off. I can't remember if they were paid or unpaid. It was a pretty good employer. But yeah, fuck, dude. This shit's heavy. And I mean, I don't know about 20 days, but I support the idea behind it. Also, I know a couple that's like had like 10 or 12 and they've been trying for a while. It's crazy. Enhance access to abortion care throughout the country. Remove the obligatory 3-day waiting period before termination medication can be prescribed. Here's the thing. I am on board with removing barriers to getting access to abortions, but I never want to tell what someone has to do with their body, right? Because you're making a hard choice a lot of the time. I mean, for some people, it's probably easy choice, right? But for most people, that's a hard fucking choice. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the 3-day waiting period thing. Maybe it's the right move to get rid of it. I would have to do more research on it, like what are the outcomes? Does the 3-day waiting period actually enhance? You know what? I think I'm okay with getting rid of the 3-day waiting period, but I would do more research on this. Establish a disability information and support center in every community health organization as a one-stop shop for people with disabilities and their families seeking to engage with public services. This honestly just seems good. Review the Disability Act of 2005 with a focus on the assessment of need process, streamlined access to health and education supports. Yeah, this all this seems good. I think the only bit that I'm kind of about was like the optics of this and like what are the potential outcomes of these things and what do these actually mean in reality. I don't know. Education. Examine the possibility of creating a new university that teaches all classes online, similar to the UOC in Spain or Open University in Britain. I don't know how I feel about this. I think our lives are already too online. In certain senses, this is great for people who maybe have trouble traveling, etc. But also, I think warm spaces are becoming increasingly rare, and I don't like policies that make warm spaces disappear faster. Would focus on the Irish language, Irish heritage, and skills needed for the Irish economy. I mean, I'm not against this in principle. I prefer warm spaces. Warm spaces are awesome. People talking to each other face to face is good. People being in the same room together. We are a social species. Let's get us out there, you know? Provide financial support to higher education institutions to build student accommodation, including technological universities. I am pro more student accommodation. I'm pro more accommodation. I think it's really healthy for students to be living out of home during their college years. I think it improves the development of them into their own independent people. So generally pro student accommodation, generally pro accommodation and more housing. We will work to expand third level campus health services, including sexual health care, to better support student needs. Bro, students be fucking, and they're not very smart about it. Increase apprenticeships, especially in careers needed for construction, the digital economy, and the green economy. You know what? I love both of those. Third level campus health services, apprenticeships, digital economy, green economy. Love it. Lower the voting age to 16. I like it. I'm not principally against it. Limit posters to specific areas in towns and villages to cut down on waste. Seems good, depending on how it's implemented. We will implement a 40% gender quota for candidate selection, cabinet appointments, and Oireachtas committee chairs. This is some brain rot shit. I am sorry. Listen, I'm not against gender quotas because I hate women, okay? Women are awesome people. They're competent, they're smart, they're clever, they can be dumb, they can be funny, they can be boring, they can be nice, they can be all of those things. Gender quotas are just like the most fucking loser policy, okay, ever. Because it means, like, let's say you need a guy, okay? You need a guy to work on your cybersecurity team, okay? And you're like, I need a fucking 1 in a million candidate, okay? And you've got this 1 in a million candidate, and you're like, fuck, I'm at my gender quota. This 1 in a million candidate I can't hire because he has a penis. Now, I'm not saying that happens very often, okay? But I don't like that it could happen, okay? That's the first part. The second part, I think this makes you look like a loser to your opponents. It brings into the question the competency of any of the women in these positions. It brings into question, it's like every time you have a woman who's successful from a Green Party position, it'll be like, oh, she's a diversity hire. She's a this, that, the other hire. And like you have to get this sort of thing out of the party politics. Here's the thing. In principle, I love the idea of getting more women into positions because we get more perspectives on life into positions, okay? The problem is implementing it as a quota, I think, is loser policy. It just makes you look weak. And I like to project strength through unity, strength through cooperation, strength through, whatever thing. And I think this just makes you look weak. I think it just makes you look bad. And it's like being whipped. And it just looks bad. It always looks bad. You know what? There was a link up here. Let's click on this bad boy. What do we got? Vote Green #1 on November 29th. Download our full manifesto. All right, here we go. Ooh, baby. Maybe we'll go through this. We might need to do a part 2 on this. God, I love Green Party. I love you, but holy shit. TLDR on your manifesto. Okay. Amazing. All right. We'll do a manifesto review.